Hey guys, so I wanted to make a video about becoming stronger than anyone else. This vision card has a really long name, so I'm just going to call it Becoming Stronger. Mainly because every review site I know basically rates it as trash tier. But what it does is it reduces your casting time by 100. This is for your entire party, so it helps magic casters, jumpers, and all other units with abilities with a non-zero casting speed. It also gives the holder critical damage up 10. It's also gonna have a pretty nice update in the future patch. So I've been asked my thoughts about it and if it's really trash tier or maybe it's worth investing in now. Well, first, let's try and understand why reviewers say it's trash tier. Well, let's take a look at it side by side with a very highly rated card, Scion. And the first thing you'll see here is that Becoming Stronger has a very nice attack stat compared to Scion, which has spread out bonuses between attack and mag. So this is pretty nice to use for units that really need that attack bonus. To unit effects, well, this one has slash 10 and this one has crit 10 at crit damage 10 at max. And some people will argue that this one is nicer because as long as you have a slash unit, you 100% can take advantage of this bonus, while you can only take advantage of crit damage up if your unit actually hits a crit. Well, that's correct, but also keep in mind that you can use Becoming Stronger for units that have different attack types, so not only slash units. So in a sense, maybe the designers thought that this was fairly balanced. Moving on to party effects, so this one has Agi up 15% for the entire party, and this one has decreased activation time by 100 for the entire party. This one is difficult to compare, but it's similar in a sense that they both affect the order of how when things happen in a game. And although generally people will say that Agi is better than decreased activation time, there are really some moments when decreased activation time is more important than Agi. But it's very, very difficult to tweak your units or your team to take full advantage of that. Well, it's very easy to just slap this on any team, and in a map that's pretty large, it will progressively help them throughout the stage. So you can see that this part is really the point of contention. This is the real difference maker in how people say that this is a very good card and this is a trash tier card. So with that said, let's discuss activation time. And it confuses people because they use different terminologies in different parts of the game. Like this one says casting time, this one says activation time, but really they're talking about the same thing. It refers to this gauge that you need to fill in order to activate skills. And this gauge goes up to 1000. And you can see this one reduces it by 20%. So from 1000, it's going to go to 800. This one reduces it by a flat value of 100. Speedcast reduces it by, as far as I know, 250 at max. And these are the ways that you can reduce casting time or activation time. I'm not sure if these are all of them, but these are the ways that I know. So it can be master abilities, passives, actives, TMRs, and of course vision cards. I'm only going to talk about Becoming Stronger, but I'll touch on some of these as I explain how activation time works. This is how it works. And if this is the first time you're going to be hearing things like cycles and CT and AT, it's going to be very confusing. But bear with me as I try to explain it in the simplest way that I can. If you don't understand it the first time, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm going to show you later what it looks like. Now you have a skill like Holy and it has a cast speed of 200. Also, you have two characters, Ayaka and Kilfei, that you build to have the exact same agi. If you take them out and on their first turn, you have them cast Holy and nothing else, what that does is that it will create two separate AT activation time gauges for Ayaka and Kilfei, and it will add the value of 200, which is the cast speed of Holy, to that activation gauge each cycle until it reaches 1000. And when it does reach 1000, it's going to finish casting Holy and it's going to activate that skill. Now, Kilfei has a master ability that reduces her activation time by 20%. So that means it only goes up to 800. And so when she casts Holy, she can do it in 4 cycles. And assuming Ayaka doesn't have any activation time reduction skills equipped, she needs 1000. So Kilfei is going to be able to cast Holy 1 cycle faster than Ayaka. How that all works, I'm going to show you. So what I have here is the setup that I've described. I have an Ayaka with an agi of 65 with no way to reduce her activation time. And I have a Kilfei whose agi is also 65, but she has her master ability that decreases her activation time by 20%. So what will happen is that Ayaka will have an activation gauge that goes up to 1000, and Kilfei will have an activation gauge that goes up to only 800. But since Ayaka is positioned first, she will act first, but they will both act in the same cycle because they have the same agi.
But I will do my best.
So here I'm going to cast Holy on this wolf.
Preparations are complete.
And do the same with Kilfei. I'm going to check the action order, and you can see that her Holy will activate faster than Ayaka, even though Ayaka did the action first. Now, that's because, like I said, she will finish casting Holy 1 cycle faster than Ayaka. Let's just confirm that. Yeah. What'll happen if I give Ayaka something like Speed Cast, which is going to reduce her activation time by 250 flat. So now Ayaka will have an activation gauge that goes up to 750, and Kilfei will have an activation gauge that goes up to 800. But since we saw that the cast time of Holy is 200, and goes 200, 400, 600, 800, it will still take 4 cycles for both to be able to finish casting Holy and activate it. So knowing that, if I put Kilfei in the first slot and have her cast it first, we know that she, even though Ayaka's activation gauge only goes up to 750, Kilfei will still be able to cast it faster. So here we have Kilfei casting Holy first. It's going to need to go up to 800.
I'm not sure I can be of much use, but I will do my best.
And Ayaka doing the same thing. Let's check. So as expected, even though Ayaka's Holy only needs to go up to 750, they're still going to activate in the same cycle. And since Kilfei casted it first, her Holy will activate before Ayaka's Holy. So let's just confirm that.
Why don't you give up now?
There. Now that that's all hopefully clear and you understand how that works, we can go back to talking about becoming stronger. Why is becoming stronger relevant? Because if you combine it with Envious Magician, you can reduce Kilfei's activation gauge by another 200. So 100 from Becoming Stronger and 100 from Envious Magician. And if you go back here, you can see that if you're fighting other Killface, you will be able to cast Holy one cycle faster than others if they don't have those cards. Like the same thing that I showed you with Ayaka and Killface. So if you're on a defense team, let's say, and it's crucial which Killface lands her Holy first, then a setup like this will be better than a setup that tries to maximize damage. And I can show you that right here.
Preparations are complete. Preparations are complete. Commence combat. Why don't you give up now?
And there are so many factors that affect who wins in a battle, like the turn order, and in a real battle, people are not one-shotting each other because they have some sort of defense. And I'm going to show you that example, but before I do that, I'm going to argue that actually Agi can sometimes be disadvantageous to you because there are situations where you don't want to move, you don't want to go in first. But casting time reduction, actually, if you tweak it well, will always be an advantage, regardless of who goes first. So here we have an example of how Agi can screw you over. This guy goes in first, and it will eventually lead to his demise. Right there. However, if you can fine-tune your team and control and tweak, you're able to add another dimension and define who gets their abilities off first. Then you will always be at an advantage. Right there. So what are my final thoughts? I can say that Becoming Stronger is objectively a bad card, and I wouldn't recommend it to non-advanced users because it's very difficult to use and it requires careful tweaking and careful thought. So, but that said, I don't believe that Becoming Stronger is a trash tier card. I believe that it has its place, especially in defense setups. It will allow you to cast spells faster than your opponent, even though they go first by default because they're attacking. If you have the same Agi, things like that. I believe it has its place. So should you spend your resources to max this card? To that I say no, unless you've theory crafted heavily, you know exactly the team composition that you're going to use it for, and you know exactly what you're doing. So for not advanced users, I would suggest that you don't touch this card. But if you're feeling creative, you've theory crafted, you know exactly what you want, you know how it's going to help your team, and it can help your team. I think it can be a strong card. Those real geeks out there that are feeling creative, want to create something unique, this card is definitely fun to play with. Well, that's all I have to say about it, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.